So let's take on a big question people ask me. What are you supposed to do when other people in your life stay friends or stay close to the narcissistic person who hurt you? Have you had the experience of going through a toxic narcissistic relationship and then people whom you thought were your friends or were your people continue to maintain a relationship with a narcissist? Listen, I think almost all of us have been through this. Let's take a few examples. You experience a toxic, awful, betrayal-filled, emotionally abusive relationship or marriage, and then you break up with that narcissistic person, and some of your friends still spend time with that person. They may even meet your ex's new partner or continue to comment on their social media in a friendly way. Or you may have had the experience that you were abused by a family member, psychologically or otherwise, and other family members that you considered yourself to be close to continue to either deny your experience or I should say, rally around that person that was harmful, or at least stay close to them. Or your boss or manager or a colleague screwed you over at work, and you watch people that you trusted or respected continue to collaborate with that person who screwed you. One of the most difficult aspects of healing from narcissistic relationships, and I've said it a million times on this channel, is the injustice. There's a unique injustice in these relationships. The narcissistic people are so good at playing victim. They are so good at convincing others of their suffering. They are able to put on a public mask that tricks people and also keeps them successful. And since people with these personalities don't really care that much about other people, narcissistic people really aren't expending any of their bandwidth thinking about you and your emotions. Healing is hard enough when we have a broken heart. It is multiplied when there is betrayal and healing in the face of injustice. It's next level. There is no closure, almost never closure in a narcissistic relationship. You're not going to get the true heartfelt apology or accountability or taking of responsibility or even the deathbed confession. You're not going to get that moment of being seen. And because of hoovering and the narcissistic person's tendency to forever play emotional cat and mouse, other emotions, including a sense of foolishness, also seep in. And on top of that, they get away with it. Other people, most other people, will make excuses for narcissistic behavior. You've heard them all, right? Oh, they don't mean it. Their bark is worse than their bite. Oh, you have to give people a chance. Okay, yeah, I know he was a jerk on this one, but he's really good at what he does. Or things like, I know she wasn't nice to you, but my kids think she's fun. Or they had a tough childhood, so sometimes things are hard for them. Or I think that tough exterior with them, that's just how they grew up. It's just bravado. They aren't that bad. Listen, in the comments, please list all the stuff. Add to this list of the shit that people have said about people who have narcissistically abused you as part of giving them a free pass, right? But ultimately, because of all of these people handing out free passes to them and making excuses, they get away with it. Narcissistic people work very hard to maintain the persona of misunderstood nice person. And it's also kind of delusional. I think the young folks call it delulu now. But narcissistic people actually really believe it, that they are nice people. The research shows that they overestimate their empathy. They consider themselves to be fair and balanced and thoughtful. They believe this victim narrative that they sell, and they genuinely believe that people are not fair to them. So When you try to show the evidence otherwise, you are wasting your bandwidth and you are wasting your breath because they really believe it. They believe they're great. So that takes us to a harsh reality, and there is no getting around it, that people around you that know both of you, both the narcissistic person in your life and you, even if your relationship ends or you go no contact or you massively disengage and go low contact, that these people you knew, that you thought you were still close to, they keep hanging out with, spending time with the narcissistic person. Now, there's a few ways this can go. So let's break down some of these scenarios. I'm sure some or all of these will be familiar to you. Number one, someone close to you, you thought was your friend or whomever, a friend, family member, is all in with the narcissistic person, even after the relationship ends. They still hang out as friends, or they hang out, or they work together, or they spend time together. And their relationship with that narcissistic person is what it has always been. Now, this scenario is painful as hell if they know any of the details of what transpired between you and the narcissistic person. It definitely feels very enabling, and maybe it always was. And maybe this friend or family member, whomever this person was, did always make excuses for the narcissistic person. And that they are continuing, now that they've remained friends with them, despite your relationship with the narcissistic person ending, and that they're continuing to make excuses for the narcissistic person, or are even cold and cut off to the pain that you experienced in the relationship. Like I said, they may still socialize with the narcissistic person that was in your life. They may meet your narcissistic ex's new partner. They may go to their parties. They may go to the family get-togethers. They may post fun pictures together on social media. Now, this particular version, this scenario can feel like betrayal. It's the willingness of someone close to you just doing what feels like literally ignoring what happened to you. And for many folks, navigating the fallout and the relational trauma of the narcissistic relationship, this feels like a relational re-trauma. That folks are just folks that you care about, that you love even, are just grinning away with the narcissistic person who hurt you so deeply. And that narcissistic person still manages to play the victim and moves on relatively unscathed and gets into a new relationship quickly. And this can be a double grief too. In some cases, these folks who just keep on keeping on with the narcissistic people are the ickiest self-serving enablers who get something out of the relationship with the narcissistic person. I mean, in some cases, these are people who want to have it both ways and be friends with both of you. And that may be, listen, that might be some sort of feel-good, miscongeniality, be their own fixer, need to be like BS. It might even be their own Machiavellianism. It's going to depend on the person. I have to say, this particular scenario of them just sort of having their best ever friendship with this narcissist, even though you split up with them, is the worst version, because you may also get gaslighted. That your friend might say, what? You expect that just because you guys broke up, I have to give up my friendship? Maybe you're the one who's entitled. That kind of thing. And listen, if you have had in the past the experience of a normal breakup, like with a not narcissistic person, and now you're going through a narcissistic breakup, you know the difference. Breakups don't feel good. They never feel good. But when narcissism is involved, you feel as though you have been through a war. When narcissism is not involved, breakup is still hard. But it may not feel like that sort of psychological evisceration. And it may not bother you as much when some of your friends might still stay friends with an ex. There's so much grief when this happens, because you may feel that not only are you kind of still dealing with the trauma bonding and losing your relationship, but now you feel like you might be losing groups of people that matter to you. And you may wonder, do I really have the right to ask someone else to stop having contact with someone? When you ask that, I don't think you're asking the correct question. For some of you, someone being friends with, for example, your cheating ex-spouse is a non-starter, and it's a betrayal, and you're out of that friendship. For some of you, you may have a circumspect understanding. Perhaps you say, oh, they were friends with the narcissistic person even before we met. But also, when someone is able to communicate with you that, like, I get it, what your ex-partner, your family member did was not okay, and they acknowledge your pain, and they don't attempt to defend the narcissistic person to you, that can feel a little different. So that takes us to the scenario number 2. And scenario number 2 is when a person, a friend, a family member in your life has to have ongoing contact with the narcissistic person from your life because they still have to work with them, or they're still in a family system that they're not going to get out of, or maybe they work with your ex-partner and you're friends with them, or they have some form of ongoing contact with the, if you will, the ex-narcissistic person in your life that can't be severed easily. Now, this can also go 2 ways. This friend can either gaslight you and minimize your experience and still have their necessary contact with this person that they can't easily cut. And this can bring up grief and anger and all the negative feelings for you. Or this friend, can be circumspect and say, listen, I get it. They did wrong by you. They did not treat you well. I see it. I still have to have contact with this person. If they're able to see it, it's still probably going to feel a little bad for you. But if your experience can be acknowledged, again, that can help. And while this scenario sucks, it may be one of the more bearable versions of someone staying friends with the ex. For example, if it's a sibling of yours who is the caregiver of the narcissistic parent, but is willing to say, yep, our parent is a jerk, and they support your decision to distance yourself, you might be able to work with that. It can feel awful, though, and almost impossible if that sibling gaslights you and tells you that you're reactive and sensitive and can't let go of stuff. Again, a lot of it is how it's handled. Now, other versions of this may be a colleague who stays at the job with your toxic boss because they couldn't easily get out of it. Again, navigating this comes down to whether that person is able to validate and hold space for your experience, or whether they shut you down because of their own shame or ignorance. So scenario 3 is when the person in your life, the friend, whatever, has ongoing contact with the narcissistic person, and they either deny it or minimizes it or lies about it. This can feel like they're almost having a friend affair with you and that they're betraying you twice. They're still seeing them and they're lying to you about it. They may say something like, oh yeah, I saw them there because I went with someone else. I didn't expect it. Even though, for example, pictures or what other people tell you shows something different. Or you are aware that your friend or whatever knows that this is not a nice thing to do, but does it and then doesn't tell the truth about it or just lies about it. The 4th scenario you could see this happening in is that the person in your life, the friend, chooses the narcissistic person and ends the relationship with you. And this may be the most painful one of all. You will probably never know their reasons, and sometimes you may, and this can be a punch in the gut when it is a situation when they were close to you, and once the relationship ended with the narcissistic person, in essence, they let you go. They chose the narcissistic person. In some cases, these may be self-serving enablers, work and families where we see this most. And sometimes we even see it is that sometimes they stay with the narcissistic person if they get into a new relationship quickly and they want everyone to be coupled up. It could also be a situation where their financial status or other practical reasons are more closely linked to the narcissistic person. In other situations, it may be because the smear campaign worked and the narcissistic gossip made the rounds, and the person who cut ties with you believes it, and that's why they cut ties with you. In some cases, from your friend, it's sheer cowardice, and the person who chooses the narcissistic person is scared of staying friends with you because the fallout and even potential harm that could come to them, so they choose to stay friends with the narcissistic person. You may even see this with your own children. Now, this scenario can feel like the ultimate betrayal, grief, and abandonment. And some folks have said that this has prevented them from healing because they're so stuck in the rumination about it. Because you not only are confused and may very well have been shattered and harmed by the relationship, the grief of all you lost in the relationship. Now, on top of that, you're also facing the loss of people that you also cared about. And you may literally just feel betrayed again and again, and the sense of injustice can be devastating. Now, after we end or disengage from a narcissistic relationship, as painful as it is, folks, it is not realistic to expect that everyone is going to get on board with us. It's not. Everyone who goes to these relationships, you have to understand some people are still going to stay friends with both sides or choose the other side. That's the case. There's not going to be a massive exodus from people spending time with the narcissistic person in your life. It may be a fantasy that we have, but it ain't going to happen. Just ending or even just finally seeing or getting out of a narcissistic relationship is painful and difficult enough. That people, we often during the breakup, we don't see past that experience and recognize that there are other people in your life who also know the narcissistic person or people in your life and may keep engaging with them, and sometimes like nothing ever happened. I mean, what I'm saying here is a bit of bitter medicine. It's not like I have something easy peasy guidance here, but we also have to be discerning in our expectations when narcissistic relationships end. For some of you, I know your attitude may be, oh, hell no. If a narcissistic person has betrayed you or violated your truth or traumatized you in a way for you was all in, you will say, I am not having anything to do with anyone who is still in contact with someone who did so much harm. In severe cases of narcissistic abuse, psychopathy, dark tetrad, malignant narcissistic stuff, where kids or other people were harmed, or there was significant financial, professional, or reputational harm, I get this. I totally get this. Unfortunately, it also may mean that exactly at the time you need social support, that you may lose everyone. But this may not last forever. Over time, as you heal, develop that sense of autonomy, individuation, feel a little more safe in the world again, you may feel differently about some of these people, but others will say, yeah, nah, that relationship was like an asteroid hitting my life, and I started again. Most other people tend to have to find some sort of personally workable middle path. You may find that it still feels like a mini betrayal, but a friend or family member can articulate that they understand why it ended. If somebody can say, I saw it, I saw what was happening here, and they validate your experience, and they still show up for you, but maybe they haven't cut all ties to the narcissistic person. In the early phases of healing, this doesn't feel good. It may be, sadly, a way you still you still have to hear stuff about the narcissistic person, especially early on when it's not good for you. You may feel abandoned by this friend, and again, it may even feel like a betrayal. And you may feel that your losses are insurmountable. Because remember a big difference between you and the narcissistic person. In many cases, they don't care if the common friends or family or colleague are still in touch with you. They really don't. Because especially if those people are still in touch with the narcissistic person, then the narcissistic person gets to play at being victim or hero or whatever persona they're playing at, and they also get to triangulate, they get information about you. The narcissistic person, interestingly, may not necessarily view it as a betrayal that a person in common between the two of you is spending time with you, but instead, they may view it as something they can capitalize on as a way to do a smear campaign or to win, or even to set themselves to get information about you or to hoover. So strategically, they may view this quite differently than you, because you're coming perhaps more from a place of hurt. Everyone approaches this differently. Some of you remain in contact with the folks who still stay in touch with the narcissist that you are no longer talking with or spending time with, but are careful. You have to be careful that you don't share information that you know could get back to the narcissistic person or could hurt you. You don't engage in the triangulation game. You may be a bit more careful and vigilant. It won't feel the same. That friendship won't feel the same as it did. And because the relationship with this common person between you and the narcissistic person has to shift like this, only time will tell if it may last. It may not, because you may not want to be affiliated with someone who still is a bridge to that narcissistic person. Listen, when we think about the idea of custody in narcissistic relationship, we are always thinking about kids, of course. But we forget the sort of larger custody conversation about everyone else in your life. People you cared about that knew you and the narcissistic person that knew both of you. And in a world where lots of people, in fact, most people, don't understand narcissistic relationships and may continue to gaslight you or scold you for using the word narcissistic or keep saying things like, there's two sides to every story, it may be a chapter 2 of grief that you are not prepared for. You may be shocked that someone that was in your life that claimed to care about you could still have dinner at the new house of an ex who was so cruel to you or betrayed you, or still be able to do business with them. And this is, and again, another reality check. Most people do what works for them. They really do. And that may mean that they continue to stay in touch with the narcissist. And another reality check is most people don't like being told what to do. So they don't want to feel that they're being told who they can and can't be friends with. Some of us might even have some resonance with that. There's no right answers here, but don't feel pressure or shame, especially in the early days after a relationship ends with someone narcissistic. Don't feel that pressure or shame to stick it out with someone that you're still feeling on wobbly ground with because of their split allegiances. Like I said, at least initially. And this is complicated, like I said, because social support is so central to healing and because we lose so much trust in these relationships. So when things like these, again, feeling like people have sort of remained in contact with the narcissistic person, we feel like we lose even more capacity to trust. Again, back to the idea of in the fantasy, the narcissistic person, everyone leaves them, and they're left alone to wonder, why did everyone leave me? And maybe they'll feel bad about it. And the other fantasy of this is that everyone will see how much the person in the relationship with the narcissistic person, how much they suffered, and they'll rally around them. But that is a fantasy, and it almost never goes that way. You are not alone in this. And I will say that this idea of people continuing to stay affixed to the narcissistic person becomes a second tidal wave of grief that you may not be prepared for. Don't take your life jacket off once you go no contact or distance from or end the relationship, because the waves of grief will keep coming until the storm settles down. And yes, lots of people in your life may very well remain friends with or in contact with or even relatively close to the narcissistic person. Some people may even choose them. And in the long term, you will get healthier from not having to volley with a toxic relationship. But like I said, in the short term, the losses can feel insurmountable. The best I've got to give you here is that you're not alone. And we are in this era, despite all of the education so many of us are doing about narcissistic relationships, it still feels like the narcissistic people are the ones who always win, and people keep falling for their narratives, and it sucks. And sometimes just that validation that this does feel like it sucks, and that over time it'll shift, it's about the best we've got. Thanks again.